Hey everyone, welcome to the Craft Beer Professionals 2025 Spring Virtual Conference. Small Batch Standard is pumped to be the day one sponsor, and we're even more excited to help you generate more profit. Right now, today, it has never been harder to generate profit in the craft brewing industry. And here's why. If these two graphs don't paint a clear picture of what's happening in craft today, I don't know what will. In order to help you navigate this, we have put something together just for you. We call it the Small Batch Standard Profit Plays. These are excerpts from our profit playbook and include our top strategies for boosting profit at your brewery. And because you're here today, you get those plays for free. So head over to sbstandard.com/CBP to claim your copy. Thanks for being here and enjoy the talk.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever time it is you are joining us. Thank you so much for logging on and giving me some of your well-earned ears and eyeballs and brain, hopefully. My name is Tim. I'm the owner of the brand Weaver, and a massive shout out to the event sponsors for this wonderful event, which of course is Small Batch Standard and In Touch Labels. Now we've got that out of the way, guys and girls and everyone else. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about how to keep your brewery relevant for the next generation. Now, don't panic. I'm not just going to focus on Gen Z. I'm going to be speaking about the whole shift and change in consumer that is coming down the road at a rapid rate of knots and what you can expect. But more importantly, what you can do about it. This presentation is to try and give you the tools and as much value as possible for you to go out there and absolutely nail it with your brewery branding moving forward. So, without further ado, let's get stuck in. And of course, if you've got any comments, slam them in the comment field. I'll be happy to answer them. So first things first, shock horror, and I'm sorry to disappoint you all, but the classic brewery marketing 101 playbook is not going to work for you anymore, boys and girls. Just posting on social media, sending out an email newsletter, maybe a flyer is not going to cut the mustard. It's not going to draw people into your tap room. It's not going to raise awareness of your brand. It's not going to sell more bottles or cans or get you onto more taps. There is so much more that we need to be doing these days. But do not worry, my friends, because I'm going to show you what that looks like and what you need to be doing to keep your brewery going in the next few years, taking into account everything that I know about consumer trends and habits and applying my beautiful branding lens to it. But I suppose the big question you're going to be asking, like, why do I want to listen to this big bearded chap? And I mean, that's all fair. As you can probably tell, I'm from the UK. I'm based over here in good old Blighty, but I am a brand strategist, designer, and consultant, and now niche into the brewery space. In the past, I have had the pleasure of working with brands such as Disney, DC, Masterbuilt, Lucozade, Kamado Joe, EasyJet, all based around bringing their brands to life, creating experiences that engage, that delight, and keep them relevant in the eyes of their consumers. But as I say, these days, you'll find me more working with breweries. So you can find the podcast that I host, Branding for Breweries Online. And you can follow me on LinkedIn where I share daily information. And there are many other places, and I'll let you know at the end of this. But in terms of working with breweries, I kind of get some good results. I don't want to brag, but we've got one brewery who locked in 100K in 2 days after rolling out a strategy I created. I worked with one of the UK's biggest breweries knocking off well-known lagers with their summer lager. I've helped a brewery establish their top 5% dominance of UK breweries in Untapped and gain 2 new trades each week. So if that's enough to make you go, all right, I'll give this guy a couple of minutes of my time. I'll try and keep it short. I'll try and keep it sweet. And hopefully you'll pick up something which you go, yeah, that's kind of cool. I'm going to use that moving forward. So where do we begin? Well, where does anyone begin? We've got to prepare ourselves, okay? If you haven't embraced the idea that things are changing and things are moving on, then this is going to be a shocker for you. But let's see how we get on. First things first, let's talk about where your audience audience, where your consumer, or what I call your perfect punter, are finding you and looking for you these days. And this is the digital shift, okay? There are a few things I want you to bear in mind and a few stats and facts that I want to lead with this on, okay? 76% of UK consumers are likely to buy directly from a social channel this year. Now, I appreciate that's a UK statistic, but it's going to be very, very similar with you guys and girls out in the States. But that is over 3/4 of people who are going to be using like a TikTok shop, an Instagram shop, or following a link through from social media to make a purchase. You've got over 90 million people who are going to be utilizing AI tools to do searching for them, fact finding, and discovering the information that they're looking for. And if you've not been living under a rock, you will already know that YouTube, yes, the video platform, is the world's second largest search engine. You've got Google, and then you've got a video platform, people. Really fascinating stats. But I suppose you're thinking, that's all well and good, but what should I do with this? Well, my friends, do not worry, do not fear. Your good old friend, the Brand Weaver, is here to help. First things first, and things that you need to bear in mind. The idea of traditional SEO is no good anymore. I mean, it's a factor, you still need to do it, but if you're focusing on the likes of keywords and long tail keywords and that's it, you're gonna have a problem. What you need to be thinking about is AI is there and it is scanning everything it can find about you, especially with the deep search functionality that's kicking in these days. If someone goes, tell me about insert brewery name here, if you've set up a Threads account or an X account or Pinterest that you haven't used in years, it's actually outdated, ChatGPT and all those other AI generators are still going to pull that content in and it's going to mash it all together and try and work out the narrative of your brewery. So if you're out of date, you might end up delivering the wrong information to your potential consumer. And when I say you, AI might end up delivering the wrong information to your perfect drinker. So you want to make sure that your presence is nailed and legit. If you're not using a channel, either start using it again, update it, or delete it, okay? It's just good housekeeping. The other thing to bear in mind is if people are buying through social media, you need to be there. And I'm not talking about just using social media, that's obvious, but actually the shopping mechanism is really, really valuable and will continue to grow as we move ahead in the next couple of years. Now, I appreciate you're going to say, yeah, but Tim, I can't sell beer through TikTok. I can't sell beer through Instagram. You're completely right. But you can sell merchandise. You can sell ticketed events through, third parties. And of course, you can link directly through to your website. So there are ways and things that you need to consider to draw people from social media into your shopping area, and clever ways at that. And third and finally, this idea of YouTube, video generated content, which is going to be indexed and really count towards people finding you. And if you're not happy enough, or if you're not confident enough to stand in front of a camera or sit, then you need to find a way of generating content that will still live within YouTube. So when people are searching for you, you're going to be there. But we're going to touch on that in a little bit more detail, a little bit further down this conversation. I say conversation, it's me talking to a camera. Presentation, you know what I mean. Here's the next one. You've kind of worked out where people are going to be looking for you, but now you need to grab their attention. Things are vying for everyone's attention at a rate of knots these days. And I want to give you a couple of pointers in terms of how you're going to break through that noise, or cut through the digital noise, as it says here, to really get into the hearts and minds of your drinkers. And what I say here is why a beer mat might actually be your best advert. Now, it's not loaded. I will go into that in a bit. But a few things to bear in mind. Everyone, nearly everyone, is drowning in content overload right now. People are getting fed up with targeted adverts. They're getting fed up with stuff thrown in front of them just because the algorithm thinks they're going to like it. People have multiple social channels to manage, watch, and look at. Their attention is being pulled left, right, and center at each and every possible moment. And then adverts are even tracking them outside of the app you originally used and popping up in other places. And people are losing faith in the brands that do that because they kind of feel a bit weirded out, a bit creeped out by this stalkerish kind of approach. But then maybe you go, well, all right, if I can't use social ads, maybe good old email will cut through to the noise. And I mean, it's good, it has its place. You can own an email list better than you can a social channel that could get shut down at any minute. But the problem is your consumers' inboxes are full. It was a stat that I found the other day that the average office worker in the States receives 120 emails a day. So if they're working 5 days a week, that's 600 emails landing in their inbox. Now, how is your poor brewery meant to be cutting through that with your one potential email update a week? You're gonna struggle, right? But what can you do to help break through that noise of almost like forcing content into the face of your consumer? What are they going to respond to better as we look ahead and down the line at what's coming? Well, what should I do? I hear you ask. Let's try something different. Let's go old school. I want to talk about the OG DM, direct marketing. But what I want to talk about here is the idea is if you embrace point of sale and these wonderful real touch points that people can interact with, what you're giving is the opportunity for a tap room user, for someone sat at the bar to go, I like that. I'm going to tell my friend about it. Even better, they might take a photograph and upload it to their social channel and tag you in. And what you're achieving there is you've extended your marketing reach, but you've done it in a way that is authentic and that people might actually listen to. Because it's not coming from the brewery anymore, it's coming from their friends. And they're much more likely to trust, like, and love their friends than they are the random brewery popping up on their feed. So things like beer mats, glasses, bar runners, all this wonderful stuff that you can see every time you step into a tap room or go into a brewery, each of those is an opportunity to engage and create something different. The beer mat reference I made earlier on is something I know has worked. I've done it with a client of mine where it's not just a normal beer mat with a brewery name on it. We've actually flipped it, and on the back, there's a space for people to leave a message. Now, this is part of a wider brand strategy, but there are 3 incredible things that happened with just that little bit of detail. Number 1, it creates a connection with the drinker and the person behind the bar, because you can say the person serving, if it's a quiet afternoon, you could write a little note to whoever's just bought that beer. So lovely to chat to you. Really love your hat. Great looking scarf. Or hope you enjoyed the IPA. Once you've tried that, come back and try this one. It's a nice touch point where your shopper feels like they're unique, trusted, and valued. Now, you're probably going, Tim, the bar gets really busy. We're not going to have time to write on this all the time. You're completely right. During those other times where things do get too busy, that beer mat was on the tables for consumers and customers to use. And what they ended up doing was writing little messages of their own. Maybe it was a little review of the beer. Maybe it was something a bit funny. Maybe it was a message to someone who's going to be sitting on the table after them. But what that then did is people took photographs, people shared it. And also the brewery could do the same. These handwritten, authentic reviews about their beers that they can put out there. And third and finally, it makes an experience, an installation piece, because the brewery is now collecting up those bar mats and they're going to create a wall of them across the tap room when they've got enough. So again, authentic, genuine community building, all from a beer mat. Now, the other things, there's many other things you can do to try and be different, but just don't do the same. I mean, even go guerrilla. The idea of, the perfect example, in Bristol here in the UK, we have a brewery called Unbarred, and they have a stout called Stoutzilla, and it only gets released once every year, but they went guerrilla. Stoutzilla, Godzilla, they put someone in an inflatable Godzilla suit and sent them rampaging through the streets of Bristol. Now, they didn't have a massive Unbarred brewery banner next to them. They were just capturing footage of this Godzilla creature running riot through the streets. Now, of course, it's going to capture minds. It's going to be like, well, what's that all about? And of course, it leads always back to Unbarred, but the brand name didn't have to be the first thing. It's about capturing the attention of someone and pulling them towards you. Other things we've seen done before, the idea of like a CSI crime scene, corner off an area, white outline of a beer, QR code that gets scanned and you get taken to your brewery tap room or indeed your website, which explains something along the lines of why they found the CSI crime scene, like bad beer is a crime, that kind of idea. Or even that kind of, what's it called, the inverted graffiti, where you get the stencils and you can spray using a power washer and it kind of etches your logo onto the sidewalk. That's another really nice idea, just to capture the attention of someone and draw them towards your brewery. But there are many, many more. And the thing I'd recommend is, whatever you do, just make sure it's brand aligned, okay? That's the important thing here. Whew. If you've got questions, comments, don't agree, do agree, pop them in here, peeps. I'm more than happy to answer. But let's move on. Let's now talk about your consumer, why they buy from you, or indeed why they do not buy from you, which I would call equally important in this wonderful world that we call branding and marketing. You've all heard of the idea of the sales funnel. It's this wonderful V-shaped thing where supposedly lots of people come in the top and then one person buys from you at the bottom. Well, it's absolute rubbish, and Google have dispelled it. The way shoppers, shop and consume these days, it's more like a candy floss cone with absolute madness mangled up at the top and all these different touch points. You've got someone who sees you on Instagram and then disappears because they've got distracted, or they've been told about it by their friend, or they heard someone on a podcast mention it, or they've got an email newsletter. And it's only at that very perfect point where they go, oh, it's the end of the month, I might treat myself to a bit of craft beer. If you pop up in front of their mind at that point, that's when you're going to get that purchase. Then they'll start to trickle down some form of funnel, but it's nowhere near what you thought it was. But on the other side of the coin, if you are lucky enough to get your content, get your brewery brand in front of their eyeballs, you're dealing with goldfish, or indeed worse. I mean, the stat was we've gone down from 12 seconds attention span to 8-second attention span. And I'm already clocking 16 minutes in this. So I don't know how many of you I'm holding on to at the moment, but if you're still here, God bless you. Now, you'd like to say, if you're a negative person, well, people's attention span is waning because they're just used to TikTok videos and reels and all this really short content. That's one way of looking at it. In my opinion, people are so stripped for time, so time sensitive these days that they will only invest in things that are really, really important to them and really, really provide them value. And if you think about it that way, then you're in a better mindset to create content and information that will appeal to people and hopefully grab them in that incredible candy floss mishmash of a sales funnel. So what should I do? Well, first things first, presence is king. The idea of just going, well, we've got an Instagram channel that now posts onto our Facebook account as well. Thank you, Meta Business Suite, really isn't enough. You need to expand that net and use every possible opportunity to get in front of your target consumer. So of course that's social media. Of course that's email newsletters. Of course it's kind of campaigns and running bits and bobs in your local area, but embracing podcasts, long format interviews, live interviews, any potential way that people are going to be creating content for you, or you're creating content for the brand itself, is really, really important. And you need a strategy that supports all of that. But not only that, you have to stay top of mind. So you can't just be on every channel. You have to be using it, okay? Because you need to be in front of those eyeballs at just the right time where they go, I fancy a beer. And that is when you're going to get them and you're going to bring them in. But finally, just as my little friend Dory says here, just keep swimming. If you start doing something and you've done it for 3 weeks and you're like, oh, it's not worth my time, it's not working, that's when you have to double down and keep on going, because this is about consistency, people. You get into a evolving cycle of going, oh no, that didn't work. That didn't work. However, you need to keep going because something is going to work. The other thing to bear in mind is if you've got waning attention spans, what you have to do is treat those attention spans with a massive amount of respect. And it's actually going, right, if I've got 6 seconds to grab you, I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm offering you right now. And then I'm going to reveal the additional information. Kind of like Mr. Beast does, right? You watch one of Mr. Beast's videos and he's screaming down the camera at you for the first few seconds going, we've locked 50 people in the room. The last one to take their hand off the buzzer gets $100,000. They then go to unpack the story and tell you more about it. But they really respect the time that you've got there and tell you exactly what they're going to deliver before unpacking it. Carlos, thank you for your question, my man. I will respond to that at the end of this because I want to keep this energy going. So the next thing, what the next generation want. Now, I said I wasn't going to focus on Gen Z. However, the problem is they are the next generation, but let's try and think a little bit wider here, okay? I really hate saying this in a craft beer environment where it's full of brewers, but you have to come to terms with that your liquid is no longer the superstar. It's not the hero of the show. It's ticket to entry now. You got to have a good beer. You got to have good liquid. And if you got that, you can play. But you've got to do a lot more around the outsides of it as well. because people who are picking the tap rooms or the micro pubs or the brew houses, they are potentially not actually the drinkers. If you look at the latest statistics, especially here in the UK, those who are not drinkers or moderate drinkers are picking where they go based on the experience and what you can do at the venue over the liquid that's being sold. It's a second thought. But then the other side of things, of course, is they want to be entertained, right? You can look at the stats, and purpose-driven brands or entertainment-driven brands are those who develop the most engagement from their consumer and the biggest loyalty from their consumer. So what can you do with this information? Well, first things first, start getting events on in your tap room. Start doing things that are going to appeal to a specific generation that you're trying to attract, okay? This is where we go, right, of course we're going to make great beer, but we need to do more. We need to do more on social media. We need to do more in real life as well. It's the physical and digital realms, and you need to be embracing both. So when you start to think Gen first, you start to break away from the monotonous, we've got a pizza van outside the tap room, or we've got an acoustic singer-songwriter who's going to join us and sing about how their partner has broken up with them. Because that's been done time and time again. No one's going to go, oh, that's exciting. I've never seen that at a tap room before. Think about things like Evan Blum at Brewdat. He was talking about recently how they hosted a Mario Kart tournament on a Sunday at tap room, and the increase in footfall went through the roof in comparison to all other Sundays. Not only that, but of course the increase in Gen Z consumers went through the roof as well, all because they put on an event that was relevant for that generation. It was targeted to bring that kind of generation in. But you can do it with any generation. You just need to know what makes them tick and think outside the box. We've had it here in the UK where we've got music bingo, where it's like a rave in a brewery. And when the right song comes on, you tick it off and everyone's trying to play bingo. It's madness, but it's great fun. And then we've also had a brewery who've done a Beyblade tournament, which was really awesome and something different. So if you think Gen first, you actually start to get more unique ideas that are going to appeal directly to them. And you start to break the mold and be known for a brewery that does things a little bit differently. Now, naturally, at sometimes you might create and come up with an event and it doesn't work out great. You don't get a huge amount of people through the door. But if you keep at it, you're going to find the ones that do. And worst case scenario is you get a reputation for a brewery that puts on different and interesting events. So people are always going to be keeping an eye on you and seeing what you're coming up with later. Moving on, you need to embrace the human. So this is the idea of people, they value the entertainment or the purpose-driven brand. Like, you have to talk to them like a human, okay? We're not talking about stuffy, hard, salesy kind of approaches here. It's like, actually, what do humans want and what do they need? What do they yearn for? And reflect that in terms of your strategy, not only in the tap room, but of course, when you're creating content for social media as well. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail shortly. Actually, in fact, we'll talk about it now. People follow people, not logos. Okay, and I know it might sound a little bit odd, and especially coming from a brand strategist and designer, but the strength of a personal brand is growing and becoming ever more important in the creation of brewery brands and indeed all other brands out there. You'll see brands with real faces, real personality win because people trust them. They believe it's authentic. They can get to meet the people behind the bar, in the brewery, the people creating the beers. And really importantly, your brewery does need a face. Of course, if that's not you, if you got into brewing to brew, shock horror, find someone who is happy to be in front of the camera. Or if it's not a member of the team, you've got to start looking outside of the team and going, let's talk to the people in our tap room. And do they want to talk about our beers to our consumers and target market? So what should you do? People love a founder's story, okay? If you're going, yeah, but I've got nothing good to say, no one will be interested in what I have to say to him. It's not true. If you look at the trends and the most popular content out there these days, there's two strands, entrepreneurialism and STEM. So that's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And brewing has both of those by the bucket load. What you think might not be interesting will have a market out there. You just have to start talking about it and making sure it gets in front of the right eyeballs. So share your story of how you came up through the ranks, how it started in a garage, how you had an apprentice and how it moved on, because people will start to get drawn and attached to it and start to share that for you. Like I say, it is about the courage aspect. You've got to try and at least give it a go. And if it's not for you, I understand it, but you need to find the other people who can help you with that storytelling, because it's so important to get it out there and share the story behind the brands, share the story of the people and meet people, because that's what people are going to engage with. They're not going to engage with the fluffy AI video that's been generated or the static shot of another beer glass on a worktop or just a bag of hops. They want stories, they want real people, and they want to connect with you. And in my opinion, avoid the trends. I think it's so easy to go, oh, that was really popular, we should recreate one of those. But actually, it dilutes the strength of your brand. If you continue to jump from trend to trend to trend, the only message you're putting out there is you're a trend follower. You're not a trend setter. And I'm not talking about a trend setter and trying to create the next viral thing, but you want to be known for the things that make your brand great, not for replicating what made someone else's brand great. So avoid the trends and you're going to get much, much better results. And then once you've got that lovely confidence, or you found the person who can put the face out there, you can start to embrace another thing I want to touch on today, and that is long form content. Now, I appreciate people love TikTok, they love Instagram Reels, they love YouTube Shorts, but if you look at the stats, even the length of those videos have been increased, which suggests that if we go back to what I was saying, if you grab someone's attention, if they truly believe there is value in what you're saying, in the story you're telling, then you have the opportunity to deliver more content to them. But that's just in the kind of almost the short, long term, long form content, like you kind of the 90 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. The thing I really want to talk about is podcasts, live video chats, all those wonderful things. Because if someone's going to watch you there, you have long-term engagement. You have someone who has invested time and they want to know every little bit about your brand and brewery, so much so that they're going to give you 40 minutes to listen to it. Much like I truly appreciate anyone who's sticking around and listening to this, because it genuinely means that you're interested in what's going on and what I have to say. So if someone's investing that time, that's an incredible thing. Someone who's more closely aligned to the people that you want to bring into the brewery, potentially people you want to talk about the brewery, and more people you want to get involved in. But also, people who watch long form content have decided to make up their own mind. Now, I know it sounds weird, but people don't like the idea of being able to work out something in 30 seconds or 45 seconds, because it can be cut, it can be taken out of context really, really easily. If you're invested in a 40-minute chat, you get to know the warts and alls of that brand. And that's where people can really make an informed choice and go, yep, they're human, I like them, I can connect with them, I can relate to them. Not only that, but if we go back to what I was talking about earlier on with this making a bigger net and creating content, these people will potentially be uploading your content to YouTube, and that's where you're ticking that box, or at least starting to tick your box of featuring on YouTube. But then you can go in and make the shorter 3-minute clips. You can potentially lift the audio, upload it to a podcast. You might be able to take some of the copy out. It becomes a really interesting email newsletter or blog post, or indeed article that you could use to get more interest from writers as well. But what should I do with this information, Tim? All right, so here's a couple of pointers that I've got. First things first, and I've spoken to so many podcast hosts. I run a podcast myself. I've spoken to authors, writers, video editors, live chat hosts, and the biggest thing they say is a struggle is breweries don't reach out to them, which sounds weird, right? But not many people take the time to go, I'm going to send this podcast a message and see if they fancy having a chat, or like, see if I could send them a 4-pack and if they want to do a review on our beer. And most breweries go, oh, I can't see the point in it. I don't think there's much point in it. And especially if maybe the podcast is, I don't know, 1,500 followers on Instagram as an example. But the thing that you're forgetting is that's 1,500 dedicated followers to a channel, 1,500 people who trust that content enough to give it their time and attention and listen at 30, 40 minutes a time. So those are the kind of people that you really want to be getting into your brewery and aware of your brewery, because they really, really love the industry and the scene. But how do you go about that? I recommend getting a routine together, and it doesn't need to be hours upon hours at any one time. What I recommend is, of a Monday morning, set aside 30 minutes of time to get online and actually find some content creators that you really like. So this might be podcast hosts, they might be people who review your beers online, they might be writers, they might be live chat hosts, but make sure you're writing a little list of those that you kind of go, oh, that's someone who could be interesting. And that's all you need to do for 30 minutes, nothing more at this point. Rest of the day is yours. Tuesday, the rest of the day is all yours to do all the important stuff, all the brewing, actually making some lovely, tasty beer. Wednesday morning for 30 minutes, go back to your list and pick 5 that you go, all right, I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes checking out the rest of the content that they create or having a bit of a listen to one of their podcasts and try and work out which ones sound like they align with your brand the most. Because you might like the more informal approach, you might something like it's a bit more formal. You know, it really depends on your brand and how you want to align it and the people you want to get in front of. And so you might have just picked 5 to research and you found 1 out of those 5 on that Wednesday, but that's great, because then on the final 30 minutes that you spend on a Friday, you're going to pen a message to that person, drop them a DM or an email or however you get in front of them and say, hi, so-and-so, really love the show or the channel. I think there's real synergy between what you do and what we do. We'd love to have a chat and feature on the show, or I'd love to send you a 4-pack. It would be wonderful if you did a review. And that will be amazing for you, because that's when people start creating content on behalf of your brand and getting it out to their audience. And this is a dedicated audience who love beer, who love to be involved in this wonderful community that we have of craft beer drinkers. But, and this is where, as I reflect through this, I probably should have put these 3 the other way around. Before you do all of that, get your story straight, okay? Think about what story you want to tell about your brewery. Because if you're going to reach out to this person and say, we'd love to talk to you about our brewery, they will ask why. And so that's why you want to go, we're based here, we focus on this is our founder's story, whatever it might be, pick a route that you'd like to talk to them about. Because there's nothing worse than having one person jump out and say, oh, let's have a chat about our eco-friendly approach. And then the other person's actually going, oh no, it's because we're a wholly inclusive environment. You can touch on little things, but you need that kind of spearhead that you really want to drive and build that narrative around for your brand. Oh, my goodness, 32 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. It's been intense, right? But these are elements of the brewery playbook for the future. Things will continue to evolve. Things will change. Consumers will change. But I hope this gives you a glimpse into what you need to be aware of and things that you're kind of going, okay, maybe I do need to be thinking about that. So things to take away. Your consumer is changing. Unfortunately, the person who was at your bar 10 years ago, 5 years ago, crikey, even 3 years ago is different. And you have to understand that. And you have to be able to talk to them and understand, you know, what their priorities are, what they're looking for when it comes to your brewery and your brand. And it's those breweries who truly understand their consumer and evolve with them will be the ones that continue to grow and do great things. And if you don't, you do risk getting left behind. And I know this is a bit of a negative point to end this conversation on, but if you're there going, nope, it's all going to be fine, I worry that you won't be watching these live feeds next year, because you're going to get lost and things are going to drip away. And you've seen breweries closing left, right, and center. And one main reason, in my opinion, is because they've lost touch with the people who are drinking their beer, and they're not creating an environment or a brand that appeals to them and draws them in. But hey, let's spin that frown upside down, because if you did want to talk about it more, if you go, yeah, we get it, Tim, we do need to do something, what you said was really logical, then you can indeed book a free consultation with me by scanning this tasty little QR code here. Now, equally, if you don't want a free consultation, if you don't want 30 minutes of my dedicated time, there are lots of other places where you can find me. Just search for Branding for Breweries on Spotify, on Amazon Music, on Apple Podcasts, and you will find the Branding for Breweries playlist, where I talk to all kinds of wonderful brewery people talking about photography, marketing, SEO, all these amazing subjects that can help your brand for free. You can also subscribe to my email newsletter. Just go to thebrandweaver.co.uk/brewery newsletter. You can follow me on Instagram, Branding for Breweries. You can find me on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm all over the shop because I feel it is so important. And like I say, to practice what I preach and get out there and spread the good word. Because importantly, if I'm not doing it, no one else is going to do it. And it's down to you to do it on your own. And that's absolutely fine. But if you want some help, scan the QR code. I'm very much here to help, my friends. Now, I've seen a few questions that have popped up in the chat window, so I am now going to go to those and we can work through them together. So Carlos, my man, thank you so much if you are still there waiting for me to respond to this one. Carlos said, how do you deal with the ever-growing need for innovation in the brewing market? Isn't it hard to build a strong brand that way? Now, it depends on what you mean by innovation. I suppose if you're talking about innovating in the brewing aspects, that's not my place to say. But if we're talking about innovating and leveraging new channels and new windows and new ways to engage with people, I don't think it's hard to build a strong brand, because good brands have a solid foundation. They know what makes them special. They know the story that they want to tell, and they know what's going to stand them out in the market. Then leveraging a new channel and a new platform is just telling that same story to engage with those people. So I don't feel innovation should be scary, and it certainly shouldn't jeopardize the quality of a brand if you have a strong brand story that you have to tell. And Nat has said, are influencers essential for new generation alcohol market? So influencers or content creators, I think it's really important to create a definition between those two before we get too stuck into this. I know a number of content creators and influencers. An influencer is just known to go, this is trendy, I want to jump on that bandwagon. A content creator, on the other hand, will document and share content about your brand to their audience. So using an influencer, potentially, if you're trying to attract a specific market, a specific part of a generational audience, indeed in a certain area or a certain sporting field, then possibly that might be the right way to do it. If you're trying to attract, for example, the beer geek and the beer nerd, reaching out to a couple of people on Instagram who do live reviews, really not a bad thing. I've spoken to a 24-hour beer radio station here in the UK, and I classify them more as content creators, but they collaborated with a brewery, and the brewery sold out of the beer brand in under 2 weeks, and they never expected it. The radio show only has 1,500 listeners, but that's 1,500 listeners who want to try that beer because they have dedicated their time to investing in the brand. So small numbers does not necessarily mean that it's not worth the time. And then Leandro, is it a good idea to start building my brand before the opening of the brewery taproom? In your experience, how long would it take for a new brewery to build a community? Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit again. Is it a good idea to start building a brand before opening of a brewery in a taproom? Yes. Because if you don't have a brewery and you don't have a tap room, but you have a brand that people like, enjoy, and love, they will want to follow you on that journey. They might actually be some of the most hardcore followers that you have. Imagine if you share the story of, we've come up with the name, we're testing the beers, this is the building that we're going to take on. Follow us as we renovate and build it together. For those of you who've been followers since the very beginning, I'd like to invite you to a special VIP launch night. That is how you make a dedicated following. So definitely work on that personal brand and pull people in from a very early stage, because you never know, that brewery might not work, but if you've got a personal brand behind it, great, you can take that onto the next brewery that you work within. And then how long does it take for a brewery to build a community? How long is a piece of string? It will vary on a number of factors in terms of like how active you are at trying to build that community. You know, if you just set up an Instagram page, we'll take it that you mean online community at the moment. If you just set up an Instagram page and you post the odd photo of your beer and maybe a picture of a pizza because it came out of the pizza wagon that I was talking about, it's going to take you a long time. But if you're engaging, if you're going out, if you're reaching out to these content creators, to these podcasts, and actually collaborating with people who have the kind of audience that you want, you can certainly look to increase these numbers. And bear in mind, you look at breweries and they're like, we've got 100,000 followers, we've got 250,000 followers. That's all well and good, but have yourself an achievable goal. Actually having 1,000 real, honest, genuine people who love what you do, that's more than enough most of the times to pack out your tap room and sell a lot of beer. So don't get too bogged down in the number, but think about the quality and building that real community. I don't think we've got any other questions, and I do hope that has helped a lot of people as well. But of course, if anyone's got anything else, then by all means, let me know. If not, we can wrap this up. Silence is weird, isn't it, when it's just me talking? It allows the voices in my head to speak up, so we want to avoid that. But it doesn't look like we've got any other questions here, so thank you so much, everyone else who has tuned in, who's listened, who's asked a question. Please do connect with me on Branding for Breweries over on Instagram. And yeah, I'll see you on the other side, people. Rock on.